The Last of Us is my favorite game of all time. Replaying it again has only strengthened my feelings on it, and as such, most of this video will be spent praising the ever-loving shit out of it. So, if saying good things about something makes you want to vomit, or write a nasty YouTube comment that will absolutely make me change my mind, this video might not be for you. Now, that's not to say The Last of Us is perfect. It isn't. Nothing is. But this game makes me happy in a special way that only certain things do. We all have that thing, that one show, that one movie, that one book, that one game that just makes you feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Mine just happens to be a game about a collapsed world filled with morally gray characters, all the while terrible thing after terrible thing happens, tied together by one of the best character relationships ever put to entertainment. If that sounds like it might interest you in any way, and you haven't played it yet, what the fuck are you doing here? Go play it! Or if you don't own a PlayStation, watch it on YouTube. You do lose some of the magic, but I think it still works really well. This video will contain spoilers for The Last of Us and its DLC Left Behind, but will not contain spoilers for The Last of Us Part 2. If you're watching this video when it's released, there are leaked spoilers out, which I haven't seen and have no intention of seeing, and will not be discussing. I will, however, have a section on the sequel where I talk a bit about what I want from it, and my thoughts on the outrage from the community as a whole.
Let's get a move on.
So, where to begin? This is hard for me because I suck at formatting my thoughts, but I think I'm just gonna go for it and see what happens. I love this game. I love this game so much that it's actually kind of insane. I love it so much that I might be blind to some of its faults, so try to keep that in mind. But there was a time before I loved it, back before it even came out. See, somehow, The Last of Us didn't show up on my radar. In 2013, I was a 15-year-old kid who had just recently gotten into gaming. At that time, I'd only been following gaming news for about a year or two, but I'm still surprised I didn't hear anything about it until after it was released. I was looking through my YouTube subscriptions when I saw one of my favorite Let's Players, you remember 2013, posted a video. I watched the first 15 minutes of the video, up until Joel's daughter dies, and I knew I had to get it. I just knew it was going to be special.
Please don't.
So, to get around having to ask my mom for permission, I went to GameStop and got 3 $20 PSN cards and bought it online. Something random I just remembered is that you could play the game as it was downloading. Does anyone remember that? Is that a thing you can still do? Because that was a pretty cool feature. Anyway, I downloaded it, and I gotta tell you, playing those 15 minutes for myself hit different. The opening sequence is one of the best ever made. And starting as Joel's daughter is such a smart move. You get to experience the whole world going to shit from her point of view. And her death is powerful.
Move your hands, babe. I know, baby, I know.
And the scene doesn't cut to black here. It lingers on her death.
You're gonna be okay, baby. Stay with me.
You watch the entire thing play out until Joel is crying, holding his dead daughter in his arms.
I know, baby. I know. Sarah. Baby. Don't do this to me, baby. Don't do this to me, baby. Come on. No. No. No, no, please. Please, please don't. Please.
Man, oh man, does this game not steer away from violence. Everything from the death animations, to the fighting animations, to the cinematography is filled to the brim with it. And not in a way that glorifies it, it just feels like it's a part of this world. It's what you do to survive. Which is something that Joel brings up fairly often, so it makes sense.
About the ambush.
I've been on both sides.
I think one thing that doesn't get enough praise is the world they were able to create. The zombie apocalypse scenario is a breath of fresh air in how unique both the zombies are and how they act. I really like the idea of a fungus taking over the brain and growing even more as time passes to give you the different types of infected you see. I especially like the clickers. They use clicks and other sounds to see, kind of like how people think of bats, even though they actually have great eyesight. Which is a super interesting concept. It is fun in practice. Something I didn't know until I started doing research for this video is that if an infected knows or thinks it's going to die, it'll lie down in a specific area and burst open, creating the spores you have to deal with. I also really like the environments they used and how they portrayed them. Each city you enter is completely taken over by vegetation and is in one way or another destroyed. The quarantine zones are a mess, and those that are still active are barely holding it together. The Fireflies are being wiped out, there are hunters and cannibals out there trying to survive. You can just see how the world has changed in 20 years. Tommy's place being one of the only actually good places to live says a lot about what the world has done to people. It's a grim reality that's fun to explore and become engrossed with if you meet it halfway, because a lot of the best details about the world are hidden. And that's where I think The Last of Us really shines, the small details. Like most Naughty Dog games, everything is handcrafted and placed. There are tiny details via notes and voice recordings to discover that let you know more about the world, other characters, and some little clues about the story. I found myself enjoying the notes more than I usually do in other games. They are brief but also unique enough to actually get me reading, and most of them help flesh out the world and other characters who you never meet. One of the best additions in my opinion is the optional dialogue you can get. At certain points, if you get near something that another character has an interest in, or maybe even Joel has an interest in, they might talk about it, which helps make the characters feel real and organic.
Does he totally gut her by the end?
Nobody gets gutted. It's a dumb teen movie.
Who dragged you to see it then?
I don't know. Let's just stay focused, all right?
All right.
These are actual people with complex emotions, not just flat video game characters. Honestly, it's so good. And because of this edition, I found myself not only searching each area for collectibles, supplies, and notes, but also for those conversations. It led me to explore even more. But I think it's time to talk about the meat and potatoes, Joel and Ellie. Their relationship is the foundation. You can think of there being a few different big turning points in their relationship. They started as strangers, with the only reason they end up together being that Joel is a smuggler and the Fireflies accidentally stole his cargo.
Whoa, I don't think that's
Bullshit,
the
I'm not
best
going
idea.
with him.
At first, Joel is extremely cold to Ellie. He practically wants nothing to do with her.
I am sure you will figure that out.
Things go south rather quickly when Tess is bitten, and with her last words basically guilt trips Joel into finishing the job and taking Ellie to his brother.
Not doing that.
Yes, you are. Look, there's enough here that you have to feel some sort of obligation to me, so you get her to Tommy's.
So now it's Joel and Ellie, alone against the world. At first, they still don't know how to be around each other. Naughty Dog apparently put in specific animations for Ellie at the start of the game to show her being uncomfortable with Joel. But over time, they grow to be a team. Joel is still a bit harsh with her at times, but she really grows on him. They get through Bill's place and eventually end up in the hunter's camp. One of the first big steps in their relationship is Joel finally letting Ellie help him in combat and use a gun. It's his first step towards treating her as an equal. Later, Ellie jumping back down to Joel when Sam and Henry can't pull him up is the solidification on her side that they are a team. They have a partnership.
We stick together.
Sam and Henry's death is another turning point, however, but this one is a bit of a step backwards. At the start of Fall, they're both fine, but you can tell through some optional dialogue that their death had an effect on both of them. Joel's plan was to get to Tommy's and drop Ellie off with him and be done with this whole thing. But at this point, the two of them have a bond. So when we get to the scene where Ellie runs away because she realizes Joel wants to get rid of her, and he finally finds her, everything gets laid on the table.
Not her, you know.
What?
Maria told me about Sarah.
Ellie?
And
You are treading on some mighty thin ice here.
I'm sorry about your daughter, Joel. But I have lost people too.
You have no idea what loss is.
Everyone I have cared for has either died or left me. Everyone fucking except for you. So don't tell me that I would be safer with someone else, because the truth is I would just be more scared.
You're right. You're not my daughter. And I sure as hell ain't your dad. And we are going our separate ways.
Have I mentioned that I love this game? Because I love this game. I think after Joel commits to Ellie, he's finally admitting to himself that not only does she need him, but he needs her. After this point, Joel is letting her in more, but there are still some limits. It's a slow process, but for Joel, it's a lot.
What happened?
Okay,
How much?
too much.
Everything seems to be going fine up until he's impaled on a rebar, and all of a sudden Ellie's worst fear is becoming a reality.
Being by myself? I'm scared of ending up alone.
So now she's doing everything she can to keep him alive. We also see this in the DLC, but I'll talk about that later. And later, when Joel finally comes to and sees Ellie's missing, he will do anything to find her.
I ain't telling you shit.
That's all right. I believe it.
No, wait!
Joel cements Ellie as his adoptive daughter at the end of Winter.
It's me. Look. It's me.
He tried to...
Oh, baby girl.
The two head into spring. Ellie's a bit quiet, possibly due to the events of Winter, possibly due to finally getting to the Fireflies, and possibly a combination of the two.
Extra quiet today.
Joel is at this point fully treating her as his daughter, talking to her about the things he used to do and what they'll do after. And then, Ellie, in the ultimate sacrifice, jumps down to save Joel in the rapid water even though she can't swim. I won't talk about the details of the relationship too much more here, I could go on for hours, but I want to say that it's given enough space and room to grow, and it's never forced in any way. It's a slow burn with a great payoff. For some odd reason, I identify with Joel. Maybe identify isn't the right word, because Joel and I are nothing alike. I'm a 20-something kid who sometimes makes videos on the internet for fun. I don't have any kids, and I don't go around being the ever-loving shit out of people with bricks. But something about Joel was really captivating to me. Maybe he was just unique enough for me to grasp onto, honestly I have no idea, but Joel is easily in my top 5 favorite video game characters. And that's not to say that Ellie isn't great. She's fantastic and different enough from his innocent daughter that she's a unique character. I think perhaps one of the best things about her is how well she handles herself. She may be a kid who still needs help, but goddamn does she fight like hell all the time to stay alive and protect the people she cares about. It's crazy to me how Naughty Dog was able to get 2 characters just so right. While we're talking characters, let's talk about the voice actors. Although just calling them voice actors is a bit of a disservice, since almost every single scene was shot in mocap and legitimately acted out. Troy Baker sells Joel just so perfectly, and I can't imagine anyone else in the role. Ashley Johnson is amazing as Ellie, and her level of sarcasm and feistiness really makes her for me. Nolan North as David was fantastic. I could honestly sit here and name every voice actor by name and praise them for their performance, but let's just say that they're all amazing. So I mentioned David just now. Oh boy, what an amazing villain. The Last of Us is kind of split up into a bunch of different mini-stories, so for the overall story, there isn't really a villain, but David shows up in Winter and acts as the villain for that portion of the story, and oh man is he good. Well, good in a narrative sense, not in a person kind of sense. At first you fight alongside him, which makes you trust him a bit through gameplay, but then he pulls a 180 and shows that not only is he the leader of the group that almost killed Joel, but they're also cannibals. To make matters worse, he's also a fucking pedophile.
And you're special.
Oh.
It's really easy to hate him, which makes it super compelling, especially when Ellie kills him in the end. I could sit here all day telling you all the ways I think The Last of Us is fantastic. The giraffe scene is such a good quiet moment.
So, is everything you were hoping for?
It's got its ups and downs, but you can't deny the view, though.
Bill's a crazy character who was a great addition to the cast.
Hey! What'd I say to you when we walked down the steps? What'd I say?
I'm just fixing your stupid pile.
Don't touch.
Joel choosing to save Ellie in a parallel to how he lost his daughter is powerful, and the deaths of Sam and Henry shook me to my very core.
What have you done? I'm gonna get that gun from you, okay? Oh, okay, easy.
It's your fault.
This is nobody's fault, Henry.
It's all your fault.
Henry! Henry, no!
Oh my god.
I could go on, but I think the main point is this. Naughty Dog set out to make a narrative character drama that makes you feel exactly what the characters are feeling, and I think they succeeded at almost every turn.
Nothing but nightmares from those years.
You survived because of me.
It wasn't worth it.
I bring you the cure from mankind, and you want to play the pissy little brother.
Before my most recent playthrough, I'd never actually played the Left Behind DLC, for reasons that aren't super important. But I'm a bit sad I waited till now to play it. I had a super vague idea what it was about, but it was truly a pleasure to play. In the DLC, you play as Ellie, which is nice considering that the main game sort of shifts its focus towards her being the protagonist towards the end, and the sequel will have her as the main player character. I like seeing her with her best friend, and the sharp difference between her now, alone, trying to save Joel. It flips back and forth between the two time periods at good points to break up the pacing. I think my favorite scene was the Halloween store, where Riley and Ellie just act like kids. Because that's one thing I think it's easy to forget about Ellie. At the end of the day, she's still just a kid. We see glimpses of that before, but it really becomes the focus of the DLC.
Roar. Ellie, really? Fucking roar! There she is!
Riley is a great character to pair with Ellie. She's a bit more outgoing and carefree than Ellie, which helps show the stark difference between how she used to be and who she becomes. Their friendship and their eventual romance is very natural as well. Even though it's very short, I found it very believable and realistic. There isn't much different mechanically in the DLC, but I did like that they had human enemies and the infected in the same fighting arena. That was one thing I thought that could have been used to spice up the variety, and it was very nice to see it done here. I also like that you can pit the two groups against each other. It's a very simple change that adds a lot of depth to combat. Now on to the stuff I didn't like. This is mostly nitpicky stuff, but I think it's important to go through so I don't die of joy. I haven't played the remastered version before, and I experienced a few glitches in my new playthrough that I didn't remember having any issues with back on PS3. I once glitched through a wall and had to restart. Sometimes when I would hit people, it wouldn't do any damage. And one time I walked behind a clicker and just died instantly. This actually happened quite a few for the runtime, so I'm not sure if these were because of the remaster or if I just got unlucky, but either way they happened. While I think the story, art direction, characters, music, and so much more are top-notch, I'd be lying to you if I said that the gameplay was revolutionary. It's not bad and it's fun, but it's not groundbreaking or new. The best part about it is probably the resource management. The game specifically makes it so that you find just enough ammo and supplies to get by, but never enough to make you feel comfortable. Shit, I'm praising the game again. Probably the biggest complaint you can make about the resource system is that it's a bit artificial. The enemies will fire at you with basically unlimited ammo, but when they die, they drop very little, if any. The gunplay isn't the best, but it's passable. It really rewards a slow, methodical playstyle, which is a nice change of pace from Uncharted. Beating the shit out of people is one of my favorite things to do. Wait, fuck, bad things, bad things. The bloaters are an interesting enemy, but they become super easy once you get the flamethrower. It kills them in like seconds, and these are supposed to be boss monsters. Like, I struggled a lot in the first bloater fight, but then I just beat 2 of them in seconds at the end. It's a bit of a disconnection in my opinion, but the flamethrower is fun to use. I think one of the fair criticisms that people cite when saying that they don't like The Last of Us is how linear it is. There are a few points where you can go off the beaten path and explore, but it always ends up being you have to go here to continue. I personally have 0 issues with this, and it's obviously what they were going for, but for some people it's a turnoff, which I understand. It's just not the sort of thing that some people are into. Joel not dying from the rebar in his stomach is a bit BS, but I don't really care to be honest. I get it's supposed to be realistic, but I think that he was down for enough time for it to be okay. He probably shouldn't have gotten healed so quickly though, but that's a minor complaint. I'm already running out of bad things to say. I wish I could have gotten more upgrades for some of my guns, but that's honestly just me wanting more. And that's the feeling I'm always left with. I want more. I'd like to throw my hat in the ring about the ending, specifically Joel's decision to save Ellie and kill many of the Fireflies. I know there were a lot of people who thought that Joel was a selfish monster for his action here, but I don't agree. Now, I'm under no illusions about Joel's character. He had to do a lot of terrible things to survive, as he tells Ellie, but that's the world that he lives in. People who didn't do what it takes to survive are already dead. So while I don't think that Joel is necessarily an evil person, he obviously doesn't enjoy killing people and doesn't go around doing it for fun, he's not exactly a good person either. But let's talk about the Fireflies real quick. We first see them fighting back against the military in Boston, and the first member we see is Marlene, bleeding and half dead. The first interaction we have with the Fireflies is them handing over the possible cure for humanity over to a bunch of shady smugglers they don't know. And it's important to note here that Marlene offered to trade Joel and Tess all the guns they were supposed to receive from Robert, and some extra. So Joel and Tess take Ellie to the rendezvous point, but the Fireflies have already been eradicated there. Oh, and Tess is bitten. Okay, fine. So Joel takes her to Tommy's in Wyoming, where he finds out they need to go to the University of Eastern Colorado and find the science building. So Joel takes her there, only to find out that not only have they left, some are dead, and one of the main scientists got himself infected by his own lab monkeys.
Oh no. She bit me. Oh my god.
They find out they need to go to Salt Lake City and find their main hideout. When they get there, Ellie gets sucked into some raging water, and as Joel is trying to resuscitate her, a Firefly knocks him out, almost letting the so-called cure for humanity die. So let's recap here. At every turn, the Fireflies have either been dead or gone. Joel has gone above and beyond his original job and taken her from Boston, Massachusetts, all the way to Wyoming, then to Colorado, and then to Utah. And he was promised a bunch of guns as payment for this job.
Off, come back, the weapons are yours. Double what Robert sold me.
Regardless of his current reasons for taking Ellie, that's what he was promised. But when Joel arrives, they knock him out, take an unconscious Ellie away, refuse to let him see her, threaten to kill him, and then say that letting him leave with none of his supplies, not the stuff he came with, not the stuff he was promised, is a gift. Not to mention the fact that as soon as they think, keyword here, think, that cutting out Ellie's brain is the only way to make a vaccine, they just fucking go for it. They don't run any more tests, they don't have time to let Joel say goodbye, they don't even ask Ellie if she wants to do this, because she might not. And let's not forget how incompetent the lead scientist back at the university was, getting infected by his own lab monkeys. I'm not exactly sure I trust these people. For me, the question of if Joel had good reason to stop the Fireflies from killing her isn't that much of a question at all. For me, the real question is whether or not Joel should have told Ellie the truth about everything. I think that Ellie deserves to know, but at the same time, I don't think Joel is really capable of telling her because he's afraid of losing her. And how do you even go about telling her that? But I also think that Ellie already knows. She's not dumb. Either way, I hope they address the ending here in part 2. Which naturally brings me to the topic of part 2. There's been a lot of debate on the internet over the last month that's made me think about this whole situation for a long time. Now, I've not seen the spoilers. I've been frankly quite lucky. I know many people have been spoiled via Reddit comments, by news articles, by YouTube videos and comments, and just all over the internet. Now, while I don't know what the spoilers are, I know they were fairly big moments and that many people were upset by them to the point of actively boycotting the game. For some, I guess this is about some characters being gay or trans or something along those lines, but I haven't paid that any attention because it's just ridiculous. But there are others who are simply upset by what happens. Something else I should mention is that I've actively stayed away from trailers, which is odd for me considering I'm the kind of guy who likes to watch a trailer, then gets off when I notice that a scene was cut from the final product. I saw the teaser trailer that came out in 2016, the gameplay they revealed for E3 2018, and I watched the recent story trailer where Naughty Dog talks a little bit about what they wanted to do with the sequel. As such, I actually don't know that much about it. I know it takes place 5 years after the first one. I know that something happens that makes Ellie go on a journey/murder rampage across the US, in Seattle, I think? I know that Ellie is the main player character. With all that in mind, I can't help but think that either something happens to Joel, or something happens to Ellie early on that people are really upset about. There's been a lot of discussion on the internet over the last few years about what fans can and should expect out of things like games and movies. Some think that expectations can lead to fans being disappointed when things don't turn out exactly how they wanted it to, and others think that these are products. Fans are allowed to want something from a product they're gonna pay for. I fall somewhere in the middle. When I'm excited about a new game or movie, I genuinely have a couple of things I want out of it, but I try to keep my expectations as broad as possible so I'm open to some cool new ideas. If you were to ask me what I wanted from The Last of Us Part 2, I would say that I want a continuation of Joel and Ellie's relationship. That's what made the first one so special to me, and I, perhaps a little selfishly, want more of that. And honestly, I think that might be it. I used to say that I didn't want Joel to die as the catalyst for the story, which I think might happen. But now I don't know. In the story trailer I watched semi-recently, Neil Druckmann talked about how they wanted to honor the relationship they built in the first game, and that's all I want. So for now, I trust them. Now, trusting a game developer is something that's a bit taboo nowadays, but for me, if a studio makes enough games that I really enjoy, they get enough trust from me to get their next product into my hands, regardless of how the world is viewing it. I don't trust many game developers, in fact there's maybe 3 or 4, but the ones I do only get so much. Once Part 2 is in my hands, I could play it and hate it like some people are claiming I will, and that's okay. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that no matter what happens, I'll like Part 2. That's not true. But I trust Naughty Dog enough to doubt that's going to happen, and I'll play it for myself to find out. As I'm writing this, the reviews for Part 2 are coming out, and almost every single one of them is a glowing 9 or 10. I don't often trust reviewers either, but this really is a weird disconnect for me. I have one group of people on my left telling me that this game ruins everything I ever loved about the first one, and another group of people on my right telling me that this is the best video game they've ever played. I think at this point the best thing I can do, or any of us can really do, is just try it out for ourselves. Or if you don't want to spend the money, wait till it's out and watch some gameplay on YouTube or something. I think far too often people like to think about a thing being good or bad before they have a chance to experience it. It's like how some movies can be great while having terrible trailers. You have to see it for yourself to decide. In preparing for this video, I watched the making of documentary for The Last of Us on YouTube. It's a great watch. I'll put it in the description if that's the sort of thing that interests you. In watching it, I saw a lot of love for their craft. Again, it's not like they're gonna shit talk their own product and company, but I think it's fairly obvious how much passion and love went into the first game. Now with the second one, they're telling me that it's gonna be an emotionally challenging experience and that it isn't gonna be what I expect. I can only hope that this new experience will be made with the same level of love and care that the first one was. And if it is, I have no doubt that The Last of Us Part 2 will be a phenomenal game.
Every time we're shipping a game, it's terrifying. You just hope for the best.
You don't know, right? I mean, like, people have different opinions. We have to go with our guts, and I trust the team just to pull it off.
Thank you for watching. This is the outro. Yeah, I had a lot of fun making this video. Sorry that there was no videos for a little while. Took a bit of a step back. The Modern Warfare 2 video wasn't turning out how I wanted it to. I love The Last of Us, in case that wasn't obvious. I had so much fun revisiting the game. And just writing down my thoughts and my love, it was great. Honestly, I honestly could have sat down to make an hour-long video about this game, but I felt like that wasn't super necessary. This game has been praised to shit, and a lot of people a lot smarter and a lot better with words have said basically everything I wanted to about it. I just thought it would be interesting for me to, you know, come out and say it because I enjoy making these videos. Hopefully you enjoyed watching. If you tell me if you disagree or agree about what I think about The Last of Us, and if not, why? With The Last of Us Part 2, I'll be making a video on that. That's my next video. I have a script for the Modern Warfare 2 video, like half complete, but it wasn't coming out how I wanted it to, so that's on the back burner for now. But yeah, I will be playing The Last of Us Part 2, and I will be reviewing it. Hopefully that's not a super long process. I'm not sure if I'm going to stream The Last of Us Part 2. I'm thinking about streaming it on my other channel. I'm not sure, though. If I do, it'll probably be without my voice, but if there's any interest for that, maybe I could do it with my voice. But yeah, I'm excited. Assuming this video comes out on time, it'll come out in a few days. So, yeah, I'm really excited, and I hope that you are too. And if you aren't, please don't tell me why until after I've played it. I don't want to be spoiled, so please don't spoil it for anyone in the comments if you are spoiled. So, yeah, check out my other videos on this channel. I make reviews kind of like this, and I hope that you have a fantastic day. I will see you later for The Last of Us Part 2 video. All right, bye.